Welcome to another episode of the Soulful Side of Life with me, Portee. I hope you're well and having a good week. Today's a good one with Mira Blum. And I first met Mira, I think it was 2 years ago, in Aspen during the Aspen Snowball when there was a daytime bazaar shopathon kind of thing happening. And I didn't know what to expect, and I headed upstairs and I saw her handbags, beautifully custom craftsmanship handbags. And that's when I first became familiar with her brand, her work, and her. And I just knew that I had to interview her because what she does is unique work. And I got a deeper sense of Mira when we did this podcast episode, because when I met her in Aspen, the first thing we connected on was that she was from South Carolina. And I was like blown because of all the people that I meet in the world. I very, very rarely meet anybody from South Carolina or anybody who knows about South Carolina. And she's from the Myrtle Beach area, and I'm from Columbia, and we connected on that. And then James Parsons happened to be there. So the three of us from South Carolina, I was like, whoa, what's going on here? South Carolina and Aspen. Anyways, in this podcast episode, I ask her questions about her journey, how Myrtle Beach impacted her, if it did in any way at all, where she got her love of art, because Mira is an artist first and foremost, and she gets this talent from her mother, who was an artist, and she is an artisan. She is a craftsman. Her work is based on legacy, and that's in her generational line from her mother being an artist, also to her grandfather being a craftsman himself. His work is displayed inside the White House as well as in the Louvre in Paris. And we dive into all of that, and she touches on the various iterations that her work touches. It's not just making handbags. She makes beautiful chandeliers. She makes beautiful scarves and tables, furniture pieces. So we get into all of that, and I ask her some really interesting questions on how she balances execution with vision, and what's the most challenging part of her work, what's the most rewarding part of her work. And what's also exciting is that she is moving back to South Carolina from California, where she's been the last year. So that's exciting, because I think that the women of Charleston are going to fall in love with her store to be that's coming there. So enjoy this podcast episode with Mira Blum. I hope that you're inspired, particularly where she talks about when she decided to launch handbags, how she had to find a craftsmanship partner in Italy as well as in India. And these kinds of things can seem and feel overwhelming. But if Mira can do it, anyone can do it. And part of being a business person is cultivating and crafting great relationships, which is something that she touches on in this episode. So enjoy this podcast episode, be inspired to go launch and do your own thing as well. Hi, I'm Portee, and I'm a fashion and lifestyle journalist and editor of Zela magazine. I've always been interested in biographies and in the stories of people's lives, basically listening to what stirs their souls. Welcome to the Soulful Side of Life, where I let you in on some of my conversations with inspiring people from around the world in faith, fashion, entertainment, music, entrepreneurship, and so much more. These are conversations that stir the soul about people's journeys, about the ups and downs of life, and how they have overcome situations. I hope these episodes will inspire your life in some way. So enjoy over a cup of something hot or on your drive to work. This is The Soulful Side of Life with Portee. Mira, thank you so much for joining the podcast.
Oh my God, thank you so much for having me.
I see your beautiful artwork behind you, and I just can't wait to get into your story to hear about it all. But my first question for you is on Instagram, online, you're known as an entrepreneur, as a CEO, but who do you say that you are?
Oh, wow, that's a great question. I think of myself more as an artist and a creator. Um, like actually a creator, not a creator,
Yes.
Instagram creator. Um, yeah, I think that's how I think of myself more so.
Got it. And I want to make sure I'm pronouncing your name right. Is it Mira or Mira?
It's Mara, like Sarah is the best way
Okay.
I would say to pronounce it. And so my brand, so I'm Mehera Blum, and then Blumera is the reversed and spelled phonetically. So the H is silent in Mehera.
Got it. When I hear your last name, it makes me think about that movie It Ends With Us and how the florist, I don't know if you saw it with it sparked that whole Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively situation, but her character in
Yeah.
that movie It Ends With Us, her last name is Bloom.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's a beautiful name for a creative artist person, I think.
Yeah, and the German with flower and like bloom. It's my brand is so evocative with flowers and my mother painting flowers, so it really lends itself well to what I'm doing.
Indeed, it was meant to be.
Yes.
Okay, so you live in California now, but you grew up in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Shout out South Carolina.
Yeah.
What was life like growing up in the Myrtle Beach area for you?
It was tricky for me because I was very different and I grew up in a very spiritual family. It was an Indian-based um, belief. We followed Meher Baba, which was very different than my peers in South Carolina. Um, and I had an artist mother and, very, very different than the typical idea of what a Southern family might be. And Myrtle Beach was very Southern, especially at
Yeah.
that time. So I wanted to be part of that whole thing. I wanted to go to church and do the whole thing. And I did. I would go with my friends and things. But then, simultaneously, I was going to India and I was going to a spiritual center that, I grew up across the street from. And so it was a very interesting childhood, I guess.
Yeah. Did the beach inspire your love of creativity in any way? When I think of Myrtle Beach, I don't think of it as like a creatives hub. I
Yeah,
feel Charleston may be more of that, or even
sure.
maybe in some way Columbia. I don't think of Myrtle Beach that way, but did the city inspire the career path that you're on?
Well, the beach, I guess, indirectly did. Like I grew up going to the ocean every day and swimming. I still love swimming in the ocean, and I find it to be so peaceful and actually just very spiritual. Speaking of spirituality, like it's a really healing and nurturing place for me to go and to be and to sort of let go. So I'm sure indirectly that influenced me. Um, and I wouldn't say Myrtle Beach itself necessarily influenced me, but my mother and probably the community of other spiritual art. There's a lot of artists. And so I grew up in a very creative way. My mother we had a greenhouse in my home, and my mother set me up with so many art projects, and she had an art studio in the house. And I would watch her paint, and she would ask me to pose for her so she could get the jawline of whoever she was painting or um, so art and creativity was a very big part of my childhood.
Is your mom like in awe of who you are today?
Well, we'll probably get to that, but sadly my mom passed away
Oh,
10 I can't believe it's been 10 years, almost
oh,
11. It's like
I'm so
unfathomable.
sorry.
But my brand, and I'm sure we'll get to it, but my brand has become an
Yes.
homage to her.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
so sorry about that. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
Would you say that ever since you were a child, that you've been disciplined and organized with like an entrepreneurial leader spirit? Like it was always, I mean, I know that you have your bag brand, but I feel that anybody that has a sort of business has to be organized, has a leadership quality in them, even if they don't feel like, even if they're not handling like the CEO-esque side of their business. But would you say that from a young age you had maybe a sense of organization or entrepreneurialism in you?
Yes and no. So for the entrepreneurial part, yes. I wasn't aware. I don't think I had that language as a young person, but I loved doing a lemonade stand or, organizing my friends to do a play or I wanted to start a babysitter's club. I was really into that sort of thing. I thought it was so fun. And I was organized in a sense, but I don't feel like I'm the most organized person. I wish I was more organized, but the entrepreneurial part of it does come very naturally. I find it exciting and I love the creative aspect of it and the expansiveness of like what can we create and, what can we bring forth that like really thrills me.
Yeah. Would your advice to an entrepreneur, well, to a creative, if there's launching a business, to even if they have somebody else handling the books, to be in the know of the CEO-esque side
Oh, yeah.
of the business?
Yeah, for sure. Because you can't really, if you don't really understand, holistically your business, you can't really make good decisions or even create properly without really understanding, even if it's just intuitive, um, knowing what's happening inside the business. You really need to know all aspects of it. And, early on when I was handling everything, I remember thinking to myself, this is going to be so good so that one day when I pass this off to someone else, I'm going to really understand what they're doing and I'm going to be able to look at it and ask the right questions because you don't want to not know what's happening in certain aspects of your business.
Sure, you've got to know.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so who and or what do you feel shaped your voice and confidence to launch Blumera?
Oh, wow. Um, well, when I first launched the company, it was kind of by happenstance. I didn't even intend to launch a company. But I want to answer your question because I think that's a deeper question. I would say it's threefold. I believe there's a very strong part of it was my spiritual upbringing with Meher
Mm.
Baba and with Mera, who gave me my name and even planned my birth with my mother before I was even conceived. She really influenced me. And then my mother. I really feel, and my father too, in different ways. But I do really feel that they influenced and sort of shaped many aspects of who I am in my travels. Um, and in many ways, I feel Mara sort of gave birth when I was 7 in India for the first time to my business indirectly. That was the first
Okay.
time I did a design. I designed dresses that were a gift from her. And I feel that that kind of indirectly launched, it planted the seed of Blumera.
When you say you're Mira, what do you is that was that a family friend?
So Meher Baba's closest female disciple and what he said was his beloved. Kind of like in Indian traditions, there's Radha and Krishna, or Sita and Ram, or even Mary and Jesus. There's always that female counterpart. And so
Mm.
that's who Meher Baba said that she was. So she was a very mystical um, soul in my life and somebody that I greatly admired and looked up to. And I spent a month with her when I was 7 in India. And so she really, uh, I feel, informed so much of what then blossomed out of me later in life.
In terms of creativity, it seems.
Creativity and love of beauty and creating
Mm.
beauty and finding beauty and celebrating beauty. So much of my brand is about beauty.
Yeah.
and the importance of beauty, true beauty. There's the superficial beauty, but then there's the real depth of beauty and giving something of value and depth and high vibrations. That's what I really think that Blumera is. I've coined it sacred luxury because it's not just a frivolous item. There's a real uh, depth to everything I create.
I understand. I want to get back to how India has inspired your work, but um, I'm curious, before launching your brand, what were your dreams and ambitions?
So I was dead set on becoming an actress.
Ah,
That was my like tunnel vision. I was like, I'm going to be an actress. And I even went to a boarding school for acting. And then I went to college and I got my BFA in acting. And then I started acting professionally. Even before I graduated, Dawson's Creek was my first professional acting job. Uh,
wow.
and then I did a soap opera for a little. And then I did Big Mama's House 2 as my first film. And so that was my real ambition and love and passion. And I only pivoted because this is such a crazy story, but I got mercury poisoning
Oh.
and I lost my short term memory temporarily. I got it back, of course. And so I needed to pivot and sort of do a side thing. And that's why when I said before that Blumera started by happenstance, that's how it started, was it was just going to be a side job, really. But then it took
Mm.
off and I grew to love it. And yeah.
Yeah. Wow. It's amazing how life will throw those curveballs and you end up doing something completely different. Now, the aha moment that you knew that you wanted to start Blumera, how was it birthed?
I'd say there was like several levels to that. So the initial one, like in this phase of the mercury poisoning, I was in Bali and that was sort of, I guess, the first aha. And then I went to India and I thought, oh, I can do this and I can do that and I can put quotes on them. I loved how Yogi Bhajan tea had little quotes on the tea bags, and actually that became a friend of mine, that the son of who started Yogi Bhajan tea. But I started to do that on the bags. I started to, and I still do that. I put it on everything. I put quotes of love, and so that was like the first, I would say, aha, like, ooh, this could be fun. I could do this. And then it took off right away. I went back to LA, and Ava Mendez and Jessica Alba, they had the bags right away, and it was in a magazine right away.
Wow.
But then the next, I don't know, I think there's just been many levels of aha, of, deepening, with the journey of the brand and getting more deeply into it, and different iterations, and opening it to chandeliers and to, this table right here, and,
Mm.
artwork and all sorts of things.
Yeah. I guess sometimes that's how life works out where uh, a CEO or a big actor or this a person who gets how we see them, they didn't just get there. It
Right.
was little steps along the way that led you to that opportunity. Um, I love your handbags. So I'd love for you to dive into that iteration or how that was birthed, particularly because that's how I met you in
Yeah.
Aspen by
Right.
seeing your bags at the that bazaar that was happening. So
Right. That's right.
yeah.
For the Snowball Gala, right. Um, yeah, so so when I first started doing the bags in the very beginning, they were always unusual, but they were more normal, quote unquote normal. And then after my mom passed away, I was actually doing a collection for Fortnum and Mason, the department store in London,
Mm.
and they had sold out a couple of times of this collection I had made for them, and they said, "What can you do for us next?" And I said, I would love to try to do something out of wood, like the wood carved doors of Bali. And like a clutch with carving. And the buyer, Lucy, said, "Oh my God, I love it. How soon can you do it?" And I said, "Well, I got to go to Bali and figure it out." So I went, and somewhere along the line I thought, well, I'm going to use my mother's paintings and that will be the carving. And so it was really hard to figure out, truth be told, but I found a master artisan after many, many, people that could not do it. I found this artisan who is a priest. He's a Balinese priest. And his temple became the Blumera Atelier, and he's our
Nice.
full-time carver. He's been my full-time carver for now almost 11 years, 10 and a half years. And we do these hand-carved wood bags and tables and vases from my mother's paintings. And so I take her paintings, I draw, I trace what I want from the painting. This is actually, I'm wearing a scarf. This is one of the paintings that I use. This is the poppies painting. I draw it
Beautiful.
and then make the tracing. And then I sit with him and he takes a flat stick and carves into the lines of my mother's brushstrokes.
Wow.
And that's how we created it. Now it's grown. And so we have the wood carving, we paint the wood. We have in Italy, we do 24 karat on brass, and then we have the brass handbags. And so they've become a fusion of many places now, Italy and Bali and New York. And then of course the brass bags, and then the 24 karat on brass, which are basically large pieces of jewelry that are handbags, but they are uh, made by jewelers.
Wow. That's so inspiring. It can was it overwhelming for you to go and find your Italian craftsmanship partners, your Balinese craftsmanship partner? Because it can seem overwhelming if somebody has, or for me, just the thought of it, if you've got a dream to create a handbag or shoes, and you've got to go find a partner in Italy, like, where do you start? You buy a plane ticket to Florence, and I know they're known for leather, and then you start knocking on doors. How was that process for you
Well,
to create these relationships?
I think in the beginning it might have been a little bit harder. I don't know totally if it was overwhelming, but a little bit more challenging. But as I've gotten older and I've gotten more experienced, it's gotten easier.
Mm,
Um, so yeah, I really rely on relationships. I'm very good at talking to people and getting to know people, and I think that's a huge part of it is,
yeah,
people, if they feel comfortable with you and they like you, they'll introduce you to people, they'll bring you into their fold. And I think that's had a lot of bearing on my success with artisans and finding the right people to work with.
I see. Yeah, so now it's nice to hear from you the that, and what do you call that technique that the Balinese priest uses? Just to hear it, it's nice to hear that process.
Yeah, the hand carving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. And did he just come up with that himself, or like were you two, like, did he's like, "Oh, I can just go, and make it," or were you having to sit with him for weeks or months or
Yes, it did take a long time. Of course, he already had the skill of carving, and in the Balinese tradition, especially these patmangkus, the priests, they all are gifted, um, special gifts from the heavens, from the gods, and his gift, and they're different. They're all different. His gift is carving, hand carving, and it'll be passed down to his son, or already has been. And so we've brought his son on now too, as our second carver. Um, and so he has experience with carving, but it was the traditional Balinese carving. It was doing furniture and the doors and the more, traditional things. And so to do, my mother early on, I was working on an embroidery with one of her roses. And she said, "Well, that's a rose, but it's not my rose." And I
Mm.
knew how particular my mother was. And so I felt an incredible amount of, I don't want to say pressure, but like a duty to get it right and to really get her bird and her flowers. And so I would sit with him to get the brush strokes. And I remember one day doing a flower with Patmanku, and we couldn't decide, was the petal going in or out? And so Patmanku said, why don't you go home and pray to your mom and sleep and see which way the petal is going, and then come
Mm.
back and we'll do it. And so it's just very beautiful, the relationship that I have with him, that it is so tapped in. He honors that lineage. He honors the lineage of my mother and her art, and the lineage of Meher Baba and Mira, who, kind of informed so much of the work. So it's a very sacred relationship. And I say that each creation that I make is blessed. And it truly, it sounds trite, but it's actually true. They really are blessed.
Yeah, they're very beautiful pieces. I'm curious, why accessories? Why I know that you do other things, it's not just handbags, but the handbag market or the accessories market is oversaturated. So why throw your hat in that ring?
Well, I started it, quite some time ago. And again, when I started it, I did not intend to start a business. So there was no business plan, there was no market research, there was no, I didn't really think about it. It was just a little side project. And when I went to Bali at that time, I thought, well, clothes are going to be very difficult. This was to do a side job until I was well enough to act again. So to do clothes seemed too difficult. I'm going to have all these sizes, and shoes. I'll have to have sizes. And at that time, I didn't know jewelry. I didn't know the gemstones well enough. I didn't think I would be able to pick out good gemstones. So handbags just seemed very easy. Oh, yeah.
Easy.
A one size fits all. I can do that.
I see, I see. And would you say is it one of your biggest selling points in the work that you do, your handbags? Or is
You
there
mean
another?
you mean what are the best sellers? Is that like
Yes. Like,
um
I'm just curious, like something that you didn't plan to do that you stumbled into, has it turned out to be one of your highest selling points?
oh yeah, I think so. Like my chandeliers are very popular. The furniture, the bespoke work, but the handbags are too. I kind of feel in a way they're all equal. Um I do notice people will start with the handbags and then they'll say, I want a custom piece for the home, a chandelier or something. Can you create something very special for me? So, yeah, it's kind of probably like in units, I sell more of the handbags. But in terms of revenue, it's probably more the home decor and, the furniture and the lighting and whatnot.
Got it. You're a true craftsman or craftswoman, that you're
Oh,
creating these very bespoke, unique, one of a kind pieces that are art
yeah.
pieces, really.
Yeah.
And that goes back to that first question, how do you describe yourself? And you're an artist, a
Yeah.
creator
Yeah.
of things.
Exactly.
So you're not you're not a handbag brand. You are an artist.
Right. Right. A sacred luxury brand.
Yes. Um, what has been the hardest part about being an artist and entrepreneur?
Um, I think it's really hard, and this is just a life thing for probably all of us, as a business owner and everything. I think, having expectations, um, you know, there's days go by that maybe, things don't happen and you feel discouraged by that. And then you'll have an amazing day and all of a sudden it didn't matter that you didn't have those other days. And I think it's more of a life thing, but you definitely
Yeah,
feel it in your work. I think, these ideas of disappointment or um, wanting things to happen, that kind of thing.
sure. What would you say is the most rewarding part?
I think the love and joy and heart fulfillment that I see in my clients who really become my friends when they receive one of my creations, it fills my heart. So, for example, yesterday we installed this gorgeous light fixture for a home in Knoxville for a dear friend of mine. Um, and she wrote to me just the amount of joy that the piece brings. It's like unbelievable and how beautiful it is. And then she sent me the pictures, and it's just like, it's very heart filling.
Sure. To see your work in homes. Yeah.
Yeah, and just well, and
Um,
just the effect that it has on people, that the heart, it's really the heart connection and the love connection, that sharing of love and joy. It's like I'm sharing a piece of my heart. I'm sharing my love.
yeah. Yeah. And you're sharing all the bits of you, India, your spirituality, your mom. It's
Yes.
more than the surface of what people may see.
Yeah.
It's history there.
Yes. Yes,
So,
that's right. It's really I'm really am sharing myself.
yeah. Yeah, and it's not something that you've created just for you, because I'm sure there's a lot of creative people out there and they've not launched into various markets and they just make things around their home and keep it in their home, but you're sharing your history with the world. And I guess, that's for all of the designers out there. It's
Yeah.
not just the surface level, it's their family history, it's their pains, their traumas, their good
Yeah.
moments. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
I say it's my love offering.
yeah, to the world.
Yes.
How did it feel when Sierra carried your bag to the Met Gala this year?
Oh, it's so fabulous. You know, it's a total surprise. Like, to have 3 bags at the Met Gala was like
3.
each I had
Wow.
3, and each day I found out about one by one. So I believe the first one I found out about was Angel Reese, and she
Okay.
carried the blush hand-carved wood bag, and that was thrilling, just there. I was like, "Wow, great." And then the second one was Janelle Monáe, and she had the ruthenium gunmetal, which we haven't even launched yet, that we're making that in Italy. We haven't launched it yet. So to have that at the Met Gala was like, "Oh my god, this is fabulous." I have 2 bags there. And then to find out Sierra, and I had seen her. I had already seen her, and I thought, "Wow, she looks incredible." I had no idea that my bag was part of the outfit and part of this incredible Nefertiti look.
Yes.
I was very, very thrilled. And I heard what her husband said about it, that they were um, wanting the divine protection of the heavens, and I felt that my bag was so perfect. And that bag that she carried, that's actually been at the Met Gala twice. That bag.
Wow.
Yeah, Emily Ratajkowski carried it a couple years ago. She was in archival Versace, and
Okay.
that bag, the same one.
Wow. Does it work where you work with stylists and you just send them samples and
Yeah, we have a showroom, so my showroom handles it all. So that's why I didn't know. I didn't know.
right,
I
right.
wasn't really involved. I was working, I was doing things, and, yeah,
Yeah, but to see 3 bags there, and it was fitting for this year's, theme, "Costume is
absolutely,
art," and your work is
absolutely.
art. So it
Exactly.
was all the more fitting. How wonderful.
Yeah,
Um, as a CEO, founder of your brand, how do you balance vision with execution?
that's a great question. That's hard, actually. My vision far exceeds, sadly, my execution. I have so many things I wanna do, and I wish I had more bandwidth, and execution power, but I I, um, I have some sort of, like, little file in my brain, I think, that I keep, and all of a sudden, maybe a few years will pass, or maybe many years will pass. In fact, like, the light fixture that was just installed yesterday, I had that idea for many years, and I was waiting for somebody to ask me to create something in that way, and I was like, "I've got the design." But I think this file is in my brain, and then when it's the right time, it comes out and, "Okay, great, I can do it now."
Yeah. Um, I'm curious, you spoke about how spirituality has impacted your brand and that you did grow up going to church with friends. Does Jesus inspire you in any way from that time in your life as a
Yeah.
child going to church?
So, I love Jesus and I love, all of the great, spiritual figures. I feel very close. Meher Baba spoke about each of them. And so, I feel very inspired. Speaking of Jesus, I actually had a very beautiful, I loved, actually, I saw this on your, I think, Instagram. You and I both have a love of Assisi. And
Yeah.
I go to Assisi every time I go to Italy. I think you said you go, did you say something to that?
Often, like
Yeah.
almost every year now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it there, and I did have an experience of Jesus when I was there, of just the
Wow.
longing and feeling Saint Francis and, um yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it all and then coupled with India, it's a place that's known for spirituality and beautiful, rich colors. I don't think anyone any culture I know there's a lot of cultures that have color, rich colors, pouring out of it, but I just feel like India's, like, one of the top places that
Oh, yes.
people are not afraid to wear color and rich colors.
It's so
How
true.
has India inspired your spirituality?
Well, it's
Is
in
it
so
just
many.
through the leaders of the faith that you're part of?
Yeah, I think at its
Okay.
heart, that is the real inspiration for me, but in I love India. India is very inspiring, like you said, with the color of my brand, the magenta, that's a totally
Mhm.
Indian color. It's also from the bougainvillea flower. Um, but there's a real innocence in India and a sweetness. And
Mm.
um, I, yeah, but I think at its heart, it's really in the sort of the faith that I was born into that I feel like a past life thing kinda came with me into this birth.
Got it. Okay, a few last questions. Um, what's your advice for not allowing distractions to get you off course when you're trying to pursue your goals?
Well, I think I think some of it is just organic. I think passion, when you're really passionate, it's, um I think it's just natural not to be distracted because you just are so passionate about this thing and you want it. Um, and I think it's a personality type too. So I don't know if I necessarily have advice about how to not be distracted, but I think to fall in love, I think it's more about like falling in love so deeply with what it is that you want to create or to do
Mm.
that rises above the desire to do something else.
Yeah, got it. Um, what sort of character traits are needed to do the work that you do? And what I'm trying to get at is anybody can try and launch and do a thing, acting, be a creative, but I think having the right character traits is what's going to sustain somebody to do that thing that they're trying to do. So to be an artist and the kind of artist that you are of these highly craftsmanship products, luxury products that you're making, what character traits are needed to sustain and go the distance to have a brand that lasts?
I think integrity is really important. I think I'm a perfectionist, and so I don't want to deliver anything other than the best. Um, I don't want to cut corners. I want to use the best materials. I want to use the best people and craftspeople. And I also care about how it's made, the intention. So I care about the type of people I work with, and the integrity of those people. So not only my own integrity, but the people that I work with. because it's a vibration, it's an energy, and you're passing that along. And if I can give something, we can all give something to the world. And so if I'm going to do something and give something, I want it to be a positive contribution and something
Mm,
uplifting. Um, so in terms of character traits, I think integrity, I think dedication, passion, love. I think those are all
yeah.
important.
Wonderful.
Okay.
So you talked about before we hit recording that you're moving to beautiful Charleston, South Carolina. It's actually my favorite city in the whole world. Of all the places I visited, for me, Charleston is the most beautiful. What do you think Charleston will give you in terms of in your creativity in your business? You've lived in a lot of places, you've traveled a lot of places. What's Charleston gonna add to what you're doing?
I think I like that Charleston is a small town, and I feel like it'll be grounding in a sense. I'm looking forward to opening a store there. Hopefully, and also in creating my Blumera home, with all my furnishing and the lighting, and just really excited. The house will have everything Blumera, from the front door to the beds to the tiles to the wallpaper. Everything will be Blumera. So I'm very excited about that. And I'm looking forward to that sort of small town feel and connecting with the locals, but also, there's such great tourism there. And I just think it'll be very interesting and a new adventure, but in a grounded way. It feels very grounding and beautiful.
Yeah,
Very feminine city, and I love the colors, obviously, and
yeah, and you're returning home. It's
yeah,
not Myrtle Beach, but it's home.
yeah, I know, which is incredible. I never thought that would happen. So life is very funny.
Yeah, it is. Well, Mira, thank you so much for chatting with me and talking a little bit about your journey.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me and for these beautiful questions. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. One South Carolina girl to another.
That's right.
I hope that you enjoyed this podcast episode and that you have found a soulful connection to the conversation. God bless you, and until the next episode, go bless somebody else.